We are live, everyone, bang on time for probably the second week running. Welcome. Thank you for joining us here on Coin Bureau Clips. It is time for another live stream. I am, as ever, joined by my colleague Jessica, but there are two new or perhaps unfamiliar faces joining us today. We are joined today by, firstly, Taylor, who is Coin Bureau's editor-in-chief. You're our website head honcho. And Dan, who may be familiar to some of you, is our head of research. These guys are basically the brains of the operation. And they are in town. They are here in Dubai. We've got some company business going on at the moment. There are a few bits of paper to sign, etc., etc. So these guys thought they could come over, sign some paper, and get away back to Europe scot-free. But no, we weren't having it. We said we're getting you on a live stream because we want to talk to you about everything that's been going on in crypto.
I just came for the company dinner. And now...
Yeah. That too. We've got to feed you guys while you're here, but we've got to get our money's worth too. We've got to quiz you a little bit, put you in the hot seats.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So welcome everyone. Please, as always, let us know where you are joining from. We will kick off asking Taylor and Dan for some of their thoughts on what's been going on. And if you guys have any questions for us, or if you have any smart aleck comments to make, then please do put them in the comments and I'll read out the best ones. And we'll try and answer some questions as well.
Absolutely. And make the most of picking the brains of the operations minds while we're on this live stream as well. I know I certainly will be. Mm-hmm. So guys, we're going to be kicking things off with a few of the kind of talking points. We're going to start with October and what you guys expect for November. We've also got some fun questions to quiz you on throughout this call. And then also we're going to end up with an exclusive that you have for an interview that's going to go live later today. You're going to give a little bit more of an insider scoop into a very interesting conversation that you had.
Indeed.
But first of all, we're going to talk about October because it was a pretty good month. How's everyone feeling about it?
Yeah, green candles all over the place. So I was pretty happy about that. I'd say I was quite surprised. I was expecting a pretty slow lull into Christmas, but then of course with the Bitcoin ETF hopium, we had the God candle, and it's been hectic. You done?
Yeah, I've been pretty surprised, and I think that it's. I think that we're getting a little bit overextended, but it's you say that, and then it just keeps happening over and over and over, and the next thing you know, we're in a new bull market, right? But I'm a little bit surprised. Like this target, like this range that we're kind of in, is something that I wasn't really expecting until the halving. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is there was a few other kind of there's many price predictions out there, obviously, but a lot of the predictions, even from I think it was the CEO of Marathon Digital, if memory serves, he as one of the biggest miners, his prediction that it would be around 35-40K. Going into the halving is based on his experience, extensive experience, especially on that side of the equation. Yeah. And so to see it there this quickly is a little bit it's I guess exciting, but also a little bit concerning. But then again, Bitcoin has had the habit of chopping around. We could get to this level and then just chop around here for the next 2 or 3 months, because that was kind of happening earlier this year around the 25K range or whatever it was, right?
Yeah. So, on the topic of being overextended, I'm a bit worried about this Bitcoin ETF hopium as well, because I'm thinking there's a lot of negative catalysts, and this is kind of the only bit of good news that we've got. And it's if this actually doesn't come to fruition, and if the Bitcoin ETF doesn't get passed, I'm can we handle another year of low bull market or bear markets? And I'm also a bit worried. It's a bit of a controversial take, but it's about the Bitcoin halving being a bit of a nothing burger, because this will be the first Bitcoin halving that we've had in a quantitative tightening cycle. So I was oh man, it's it basically, ever since the 2008-2009 financial crisis, all the risk on assets have been on a general uptrend over time, and every Bitcoin halving has coincided with liquidity being injected in the market. So now, if we've got this Bitcoin halving and we're in quantitative tightening, I'm is there going to be the liquidity to actually send Bitcoin up? It remains to be seen, but it's something that I keep thinking of as well.
Absolutely.
And the market was definitely in a very different environment in 2020 for the last Bitcoin halving. I think it was kind of around the 12th of May, because it was the day before my birthday and I was stuck on COVID live streams, just looking at the price. But Bitcoin wasn't really doing much. Markets were just in general in a little bit of a lull moment, as to be expected. So this is definitely a different environment. October, as you guys have said, 27.1% surge in October for Bitcoin price. It's just crazy. So in the build up, I do understand your perspective that potentially this Bitcoin halving event could already be optimized and factored in.
Yeah.
Priced in.
Seen.
Yeah, priced in. I mean, on that note, I will say that there's really interesting. I was listening to some interview with like an expert options trader, and he was saying that based on what he's seeing in the options market, again, this is just a recounting of one person's opinion, that this level around like 35K is kind of like actually like priced in levels for the Bitcoin ETF. For the halving, I don't know. And I think that I'm in the same boat as you, is that I don't necessarily see that clean cut correlation as like, okay, halving is here, now we pump. Typically it's like halving and then lull, like you were saying, and then something happens, right? It always takes longer than you expect. I think that's the lesson we've learned over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I really think until we get inflation under control and these interest rates under control, I don't see how Bitcoin can go back to hitting all-time highs again. I think those are two significant macro factors that need to be sorted, as well as like the supply chain issues and everything else going on in the world that we don't need to talk about. But yeah, it'd be nice to see all that stuff kind of play out, cool down a bit, and then we'll see what Bitcoin does.
Yeah, I guess when you take everything else that's happening, especially on the macro front, but on the crypto front as well, when you talk about regulations, when you talk about what's been happening with the SEC and the general sort of hostility from quite a lot of governments, not just the US, when you take those and put them on one side of the scale, and then you put like hopium around a Bitcoin ETF on the other, it kind of tilts away from you, doesn't it? It's like, yes, a Bitcoin ETF, a spot Bitcoin ETF would be really cool, and wow, haven't we come a long way in 15 years? But in order to get to those kind of 2021 was a very different time, wasn't it? I mean, like, okay, we were still kind of dealing with COVID, like the bill for that had yet to come in. And we weren't used to high interest rates. We weren't getting used to high inflation at that point. So everything was still kind of almost a lot rosier than it is now. And now we've kind of got this post-pandemic hangover. And yeah, I mean, can we realistically expect to go that high again under these circumstances?
Yeah, I think I'm really optimistic about the decoupling that we've seen now in the last few weeks from Bitcoin to stocks, because stocks haven't really been doing much of anything. They're actually down generally across the board. And to see what did you say, 27% pump in Bitcoin. So I mean, we've always been kind of hoping that the crypto markets could decouple a little bit from the traditional markets, and to see that kind of play out was really confidence inspiring. So it was great.
But the funny thing is that I'll never forget those, that the decoupling goes both ways, right? That you're like, oh yeah, like, Bitcoin's rallying and the market's the stock market's crashing, but then maybe something will happen that the market starts rallying and then Bitcoin or like crypto just like lags behind and even starts crashing, and you're like, what the hell? Like, I thought like, no, give me the recoupling, Anyway.
Wow. So just to check in with people, we are as ever being joined from across the world. Someone from Vancouver Island. I should point out, for those of you who've missed it, both of these gigabrains in here with us today are from the glorious land of Canada. Vancouver Island, is that anywhere near where you guys are from?
Yeah, so I'm actually from Kelowna, which is a few hours away from Vancouver, which in Canada we consider that close, a 4-hour drive. I love Vancouver Island. Tofino, it's a beautiful place. I used to go out there during the summers, so that's great.
Awesome.
It just occurred to me now that, so I was born in Kitchener-Waterloo, which is like two kind of like towns that are kind of smushed together just outside of Toronto. And this is actually the area that Vitalik Buterin's from. And Vitalik is roughly like in my age range, and I'm pretty sure that I knew people that like studied with Vitalik, but like, of course, back then, this is when he was still, because he was only in uni for like 1 or 2 years or something, right before dropping out. But I know friends that were literally like in like classmates with him. But back then, of course, it's just unknown. But that's like a little fun fact. I was born in Vitalik's, I guess, hometown.
It has to be something in the water.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, a whole load of people orange pilled from the same area. I should say as well, this is great. Like, you guys in the comments, you guys watching are taking advantage of the fact that we have Taylor and Dan with us today, because I've never seen so many questions, and so many good questions at that as well. Like, you guys obviously have a very low opinion of me because very silly questions. Not always, of course, but yeah, guys, we have tons of questions to ask you, so I'll pick out a few of those as we go along. Is there anything in particular that you guys, and Jessica as well, anything that you guys are looking out for in November now that October has come to a glorious end?
For me, I'm looking for if Bitcoin drops below 30K, I'm going to be buying some more. That's really kind of the only thing I'm specifically looking at. Obviously, ETF news as well, but in the broader altcoin market, not really. I mean, we talked about this a bit in our chat yesterday. I'm doing a little bit of nibbling, dollar cost averaging into some Ethereum alternatives, privacy projects, not privacy coins, but privacy blockchains, and yeah, decentralized file storage are kind of the things that I'm looking at picking those up once the price keeps going down.
Yeah, to be honest, I think it's a little bit of a paradox. So on the one hand, I look at November and I'm like, I don't see anything in there that really like stands out to me as something to look out for. But paradoxically, like that tells me is like maybe there is something in there that I need to be looking out for, because typically it's like, oh, like, you know, you expect that all this stuff is going to happen in this month, and then all the things happen or don't happen, and nothing happen, you know, in terms of the price, like nothing happens. And November is one of those months where it's like, well, I don't remember seeing any kind of like significant dates in November that are like related. Of course, so you have like some standard stuff like inflation and whatever, and you know, this conflict in the Middle East that could escalate. But like outside of that, which like even the markets are saying like, nah, like this isn't going to be a big deal. Outside of that, there's nothing that sticks out, which tells me is like maybe something's going to come and bite you from behind, right?
Yeah, yeah. I guess I guess it's the unknowns you've got to watch out for.
Yeah, the unknown unknowns, like you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't get too complacent in this space as well, but develop them to bite you back. That's one thing we've learned.
Yeah.
And I'm still expecting us to reap the benefits of this build during a bear market. So I know that I went to a SUI network meetup yesterday, which for a Tuesday afternoon was surprisingly, the room was full, people were standing, they were talking about the ZK logins, which they're looking to implement later on this year. And what they're building seems to be, you know, pretty interesting. Solana has their breakthrough conference at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Breakpoint.
Breakpoint.
Breakdown.
Breakdown. Solana breakdown conference.
Call it breakdown.
Got a few of those.
Breakdown without any other word in there. And I'm still expecting us to see some of the outcomes for that. So I'm keeping an eye out on some of the projects that have these meetups or kind of hackathons or events, and like to see if there's any announcements that come from there too.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Of course, tomorrow, I think it is the Fed meeting.
It's today.
Oh, it's today?
Yes.
Okay. So Pranit is asking thoughts on FOMC meeting this week, as in today. Do you think BTC will rally if the Fed doesn't raise rates?
I personally, I mean, do you want to take it first, Taylor?
No, go for it.
Okay, I was going to say, I don't think the last few meetings, I don't think Bitcoin has really responded that much. If you go like really close on like the 5 or 15-minute chart, then you see like a little bit of a squiggle. But besides that, it doesn't seem to do anything. And it's a consequence of this decoupling, right? That like, because it's crypto's not, as correlated with stocks, then it's not really beholden, I guess, like to the same factors that stocks are, which are mainly like macro factors, right? But the one thing that I am watching for, and it's something that I think we mentioned in the Coin Bureau Club, which some people may or may not have heard about, that today, I think even I don't know what time it is now in EST, but at 8:30 a.m. EST, which I think actually might be like now or in an hour, the Treasury Department is going to announce basically, so it's going to be issuing more debt, like to refill its bank accounts and like also like for spending, right, government spending. And to issue this debt, it's like, is it going to issue short-term debt or long-term debt? And if it issues long-term debt, like the Treasury, then this will create like a flood of supply onto the market, which will cause like long-term interest rates to go up. But if they don't do that, then it'll send like a signal to investors that like they're actually scared of issuing this long-term debt, which will actually cause a sell-off in the long-term debt anyway. So it's like it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's like if you do the sell-off, then long-term interest rates will rise, and if you don't, then you risk them actually rising even further and going out of control, because people are like, wait a minute, like you're scared of something here, and so I'm going to get out of this asset. And I think that this rise in long-term rates, I guess the long story short to this FOMC thing is that I think the story has less to do with short-term rates now, like with what the Fed controls, and more to do with long-term interest rates. And this has a lot more to do with like, the supposed economic resilience and the supply and demand of like government bonds, of which there's a big supply, because the government is, as a fun fact, the government is spending as much or like in the realm of like what it would spend to get out of a recession or like after a war or something, but we're technically in like peacetime and not in recession technically. And some people would say like, well, there's wars, whatever, but let's not get into that.
Fun fact.
Yeah. Fun fact. Yeah.
Okay. Jessica, whilst I look through some viewer comments.
Oh, Oh, yeah, I have a question for you too, which I'm so excited to pick your brains. So yesterday we saw the 50th anniversary of the Bitcoin white paper Satoshi Nakamoto had released. And we had one unlikely suspect that actually had tweeted out celebrating happy 50th anniversary to the Bitcoin white paper. I'm going to read you part of the tweet because it gives a little bit of a hint to who the person is, but I want to ask you both if you're able to guess from the tweet, because it was an unlikely suspect, who actually had posted the tweet or the post on X. So we saw happy 50th anniversary to Satoshi's famous white paper that started crypto. Any crypto companies that are tricking investors should start treating them to compliance with the securities laws. Who do you think did the tweet?
That's hilarious. I know this isn't true, and I don't know why this was the first thing that came to mind, but I honestly just thought Mel Gibson. I was like, who's the most unlikely crypto candidate? Mel Gibson. Why not? It was either him or Jamie Dimon. That's my serious guess.
Was it the freedom kind of Braveheart kind of narrative, or?
You know, it had to have been. You know, I think Bitcoin's synonymous with freedom, and I see Mel Gibson, blue face, shouting freedom.
I'm just typing Mel Gibson crypto and see what comes up. See what the first
Oh no,
result
there's going to be
is.
shitcoins everywhere.
Okay, interesting. All right, Dan, who did you think it was?
Like the first thing that comes to mind for me is so you guys know like there's like Masari, like that crypto analytics firm or whatever, and the CEO's Ryan Selkis, who I'm a huge fan of. We did a summary of one of his reports. It was like a 300-page. Like he does like an annual report, and we actually did a summary of that, which was nuts. It was one of our longest videos, and I just remember him trashing Gary Gensler, and he says, and the first thing that came to mind is what Ryan mentioned in the report. He says, "That rat Gensler," like literally he calls him a rat. He's like, "That rat Gensler." So that's the first thing that came to mind when you finished saying the security. I was like, "That rat Gensler."
That is in fact correct. It was Gary Gensler that used the Bitcoin white paper celebratory storm on Twitter to make the most of it and also do a little push towards a pro-regulatory environment. He doesn't skip an opportunity. You've got to say.
In Gary's defense, though, I do think that I think he's on like too much on one extreme, but I do think that there are like unironically a lot of unregistered securities in crypto.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on, man. Like for some of these cryptos, like you look at it and you're like, that's literally just like a stock in a company.
Mm.
And especially when you listen to some of these like interviews with the guys, I'm not going to name the crypto project just for the sake of not like upsetting anyone, but there's one of the biggest crypto projects where they had an interview on CNBC, like one of these co-founders, and the CNBC host asked, "Oh, are you going to ever issue a stock of the company and go public?" And he says, "Oh, we don't need a stock because we have the token." And it's like, are you insane? Like on mainstream American media, like financial media, like you don't think Gary Gensler is going to see that? And actually ended up being included in one of these when there was this lawsuit against Coinbase and Binance, and they had all like the tokens they listed as securities. They actually included a snippet from that from that interview. Surprise, surprise! You know, like
might as well just say, Gary, you can send the fine to.
Yeah, literally.
Wow.
See you for dinner.
Yeah. Okay, there's some. I want to go with this question from Dre5110. I think this is a great question to ask. I'm interested to get everyone's thoughts on this. So the question is: does the team have any concerns about the erosion of on and off ramps, possibly stifling the liquidity for the next bull market, or is this just preventing small investors? So, I mean, I think I read that and I think back to earlier this year and the banking crisis, the shutdown of, is it the SEN, the Silvergate Exchange Network, which kind of all of a sudden made it really difficult for institutions to start moving money into the crypto market. And as a result, kind of at weekends, like the crypto market is now dead. That's still the case, isn't it?
Yeah. Fairly, yeah. Good memory. Yeah.
So I think that's a really good question, and I recently breathed a sigh of relief here because Binance lost their European payment provider as well, and I've been a Binance user for years. I'm located in Europe, and then all of a sudden I'm getting emails from Binance saying, we're gonna have to halt your like Euro services, and so it's like it's not looking good. And like you said, after the collapse of the Silvergate exchange and things like that, and but recently it looks like they found a new partner. So I'm like, okay, so it's not everybody that's against crypto, but it is certainly kind of cutting off crypto from the traditional financial sector. But a lot of people argue that, well, isn't that kind of what crypto was meant for. Like maybe crypto shouldn't be so reliant on the traditional fiat system, which is an argument to be made for that. But at the end of the day, we still need ways to convert fiat for crypto. And I do think there are always going to be companies that are willing to play ball. And then there's some interesting innovations coming out like Alchemy Pay and stuff as well that might be able to bridge that gap a bit. But yeah, it's certainly something to be concerned about. And that's why one of the things that we talk about is having multiple exchanges as well. So yeah, I try and keep an account at multiple different exchanges just for that reason. I'm a big fan of multi-currency bank accounts as well. So like TransferWise, Revolut. So if I can't swap out my euros, maybe I can withdraw some USD, some, kind of whatever you need to, some pounds. So that's kind of it. So long story short, that's how I'm personally trying to, stave off that risk.
Yeah. No, I guess I have two things. One is that I think the issue of on and off ramps, and because I think it really depends on the country, right? That I know that in the UK, there's been now like some difficulty that some banks just like refuse to process transactions. Being originally from Canada, I don't know if Taylor has had this experience, but it's really difficult also to transfer money from your Canadian bank accounts like to exchanges. It will detect it's like, oh, this is a crypto exchange. I'm not going to let you transfer. It's like, well, what the hell? And I know that there's other people that can relate to that. But I actually think that if you look, it's kind of like if you just like look a little bit, you don't have to look that hard. But if you look like, for example, not that I'm like, advising anyone to do this, but one way, like if I want to buy crypto, like from my Canadian accounts, then I'll just like, send that money to Revolut instantly. I just like top up my Revolut and then I use my Revolut to pay, and Revolut isn't going to block me at all. So there are ways to kind of like work around this, and it's completely legal as far as I know, especially because I'm not a resident in Canada anymore. Thank you. But so that's the one thing is I actually don't think it's that hard, especially for retail. I think the bigger issue is for institutional, like you were saying, the Silvergate Exchange Network and this pressure on the banks. Imagine being an institutional investor. It's like, okay, maybe I can get a few million into crypto, but what happens if I can't get it out? Yeah. For a regular retail user, it's like you're probably not dealing with more than like, if you're really lucky, then you're dealing with like a few $100,000, right? And even then, it's like you could probably find a way to like, through different channels, like get it out. But if you're dealing with an amount that is like 100, like 100 million or something, like good luck, like, parsing that out into like 10 or 20 grand chunks and like sending it through all the different exchange accounts that you have into all your different bank accounts. It's going to take you forever. You'll be sitting there for a year. You're going to have blocks. It's going to be horrible. It's a nightmare scenario that no institution wants to go through, much less individuals. But that's like the one side is I think it's a bigger problem on the institutional front. And I do think that's going to improve, especially with the spot Bitcoin ETF. I think that they're just going to be like, screw it. We don't even need to worry about taking money in and out of the, through exchanges. We just go straight to BlackRock and, give them the money and they'll handle everything. Right. And then my second point, and it's more like a hot take, is I think that especially during this next bull market that we're going to see, I think like, because if you think about it, it's like, oh, like I don't know how many hundreds of millions now of people that are like that hold crypto or have crypto. And it's like, oh, like it doesn't seem like that much, but it's like actually we're kind of like approaching like this last stage before we really hit like that critical mass where you're talking not hundreds of millions, but billions. And at that point, I think this how would you say, like the word escapes me, but basically like to have peer-to-peer crypto exchanges. Like once upon a time, that was something that was done because there was no actual exchange. Yeah. And then after a while, it was just like not efficient to go peer-to-peer and like deal with that. But I think it's going to get to a point where the availability of crypto is going to be so widespread, so many people are going to hold it that I think and as the restrictions come onto these like centralized exchanges, then you're going to see more like peer-to-peer decentralized exchanges, like local people just like meeting up or whatever, or even like protocols that will facilitate this. Just because the holding will be so widespread that I can literally go like, I don't know, I can go down to like the grocery store and I can exchange my, my Bitcoin for cash because I know the dude behind the counter and we're both using like Ethereum or whatever, right? So I think that we're entering kind of this transitional phase that's like really uncomfortable and for some people really scary because like, are they going to cut off our access? But if crypto, so long as self-custody, that's like more important. Like forget the exchanges, forget the banks on and off ramps. So long as self-custody is allowed and so long as that doesn't come under too much attack, then you can actually, like, I think we will see an emergence of like peer-to-peer marketplaces that will make all that other stuff completely irrelevant, and once you have, millions of people that are like, breaking the law by like refusing to conduct, I don't know, like KYC on like, that I'm sending my friend $1,000 and I'm not collecting his KYC documentation and sending it to the IRS. If you have hundreds of thousands or millions of people doing that, what's the IRS going to do? Like go after everyone? Like this, I think it basically sets the stage for like a mass civil disobedience. Which people will get, if currencies keep losing the value the way they are, like it's probably going to get to that point. And it's already like that in a place like Nigeria. I'm sure like people in the stream probably know better than we do.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Anyway, sorry. right there.
No, I have to agree with you because I do think the main concern that I have with on and off ramps is that centralized exchanges still are at the kind of the critical point, right, and still acting as the middleman. And what I would love to see next year moving forward is that we do see more of this kind of decentralized accessibility into crypto directly into Web3.
Yeah, well, ideally, as Bitcoin adoption grows, hopefully we won't even have to be looking at Fed off ramps for much longer. If we can start paying for daily goods and services and Satoshis, then that would be I think that'd be a happy outcome as well.
It's very good. That's a very good point. And I have I guess, sorry to go on another little bit of a tangent, but I think that that's what you will see is that you could even see the emergence. And this is an idea for anyone who's listening and they want to have like a good like crypto company idea or whatever, is the emergence of services that kind of like, so for example, like with CBDCs, right? Like there's a theory that like, oh, like, they're going to make CBDCs and you're not going to have like any control over your finances. But I think people are going to naturally want to stay away from that as much as possible. And I'm pretty sure that in most places it will be it will have to be legal for you that you can designate someone to act on your behalf, like for your account. And I think that we're going to see a scenario where we're going to see companies emerge that it's like, yeah, like I have like the responsibility to like pay taxes, whatever has been delegated to me as this company, so that all these individuals don't actually have to deal with the CBDC at all. They pay me in crypto, I exchange it for CBDC myself, and I handle all of their, paying taxes to the government, and they don't have to touch that stuff. And I think that we're going to see like a kind of like in a weird way, it's like, disintermediation is like not good, but you're going to see, especially when it comes to these dystopian technologies, that there's actually going to be a huge business on like, how can I disintermediate myself from this kind of like dystopian system that controls what I buy? And there's going to be services that say, hey, like you can keep your CBDC, whatever. We'll just, we'll abstract it away in the back end, and we'll make sure that you can still spend your money as if there's no controls. And in the background, it's probably using crypto or whatever else, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
people are amazing at finding workarounds, aren't they?
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think like in some way, like crypto is the ultimate workaround. We just, as you say, Dan, we need that crypto economy to grow.
Exactly.
And I mean, going back to talking about 15 years since the white paper, I mean, I always find it wonderful when you talk to people who've been in this sort of almost since the beginning. Like a buddy of mine from back in London who was in on the ETH pre-sale and now lives a very, very nice life all over the world. But I mean, I remember talking to him about Mt. Gox and, some of the things that you had to do to try and get, hold of Bitcoin on Mt. Gox. Like it would be like, he said, you would literally send this guy, some money, like you'd make a bank transfer or whatever. And you had no idea, you had no guarantee at all that they would make good on it. But, a lot of the time, most of the time, I think it worked. Like these people would buy the Bitcoin on your behalf, but it was a complete Hail Mary every single time.
Was this the guy at your wedding? I think I sat next to him.
Yeah.
And he showed me, it's actually crazy. I can't remember. I apologize if he's watching. I can't remember your name, man, but he showed me, he had emails with Mark, like you're saying, like, crazy stuff of like how to, he had emails with Mark Karpeles from Mt. Gox, like going back and forth, like, hey, like I just sent you some Bitcoin, or, like, where's my Bitcoin? Or like, I just sent you some money. And he's like, I got you, like, I'll top up your account. Is that even work? But that's how it starts, right? Like that's how it starts. Yeah.
And Mt. Gox, I think in their offices in Tokyo, they had like huge amounts of cash lying around, because I think people would literally bring cash to the office and be like, can I buy some Bitcoin, please? No, yeah, sure. So like, to think how far, here we are talking about on and off ramps and how, you have to use different exchanges and how you have to have multiple ones and how it can sometimes be difficult to make to send crypto from a bank account. It's like, it was a lot harder in the early days. We have come a long way in what is still a really short period of time.
Yeah, now we're talking Bitcoin ETFs and the whole 9 yards. So
I've got a question for you guys. Have any of you ever been paid in crypto?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was my salary for a previous crypto job before the Coin Bureau. My salary was 100% Bitcoin.
Wow.
And it was great. I liked it actually. And then when I first came on board at Coin Bureau, I was like, any chance I can get some of my salary in Bitcoin? And still under negotiation.
Yeah, we'll get back to you on that one, Toby.
When I started working for for quick background, I started working for the Coin Bureau on the website back when the YouTube channel still had like 15,000 or 20,000 subs, so like really early on. And back then it was like, I think it was a scenario where even the Coin Bureau itself was still getting off the ground. So I guess you guys, or I guess us, like it was kind of similar to like this Mt. Gox situation where it's kind of like cash in the room. And then, one of our colleagues who was like in charge of the payments, he'd be like, okay, like, is it cool if I pay you in Bitcoin, like 1 month? And then the other month, like, yeah, I'm going to send you, I don't know, like USDT, or maybe like this time is like, is it okay in ETH? And then like it was just like whatever was lying around. It was like, here, I'll pay you. And it was like often crypto, often stable coins, but sometimes like, yeah, here, I'll just give you this Bitcoin. Is that cool? I'm like, yeah, no worries. But once it happened, I must say, I don't think I ever mentioned this, that I was paid in Bitcoin, but the network fee was set too low. So the payment got stuck and I had to pay. I don't know if you guys know, but there are these like services where you can basically like pay like some Chinese miner somewhere, like an extra like $50, and he will accelerate, like he'll include his your transaction in his mempool in the next block or whatever. And then you can actually like get your money. But I had it happen that it was stuck because the fee was like 0.001 cents, and it was just like not enough to get the transaction over to me. So that's, pros and cons, right?
Yeah, you just reminded me, my first couple paychecks with the Coin Bureau were actually paid in USDC as well, or USDT. And it was quite funny because I was getting paid for like a couple different projects. And so I'd send 2 different invoices. And of course, it's on the Ethereum network. And the person who processed the payments, he's like, you know that every time I send you a transaction, it's costing like between $25 and $40, right? He's like, how about you just compile all your invoices into one? I was like, oh yeah, that's good thinking.
It's I remember, I'm thinking back to those days because like, you start a YouTube channel, and it's a YouTube channel. You're making videos and stuff, and you don't really, you don't make any money when you've only got a few hundred subscribers and stuff. And then there's this kind of process of like, it slowly dawns on you that this is a real business, and obviously the numbers keep going up, the subscriber numbers go up or whatever. You start, the phone starts to ring, metaphorically speaking, people getting in touch with you and all this, and there's suddenly this kind of realization. It's like this isn't a game. This is a real business now. Like we have to pay people. Like we have to do all this sort of stuff, and it's and then it's like, well, we better hire someone to do that because we don't know what we're doing. We can't just pay people in Bitcoin all the time. Let's just hope no one in authority back in the UK is watching. I should also point out, a few people are pointing out in the comments as well, that crypto is pumping. Bitcoin is 34,784. So nice. I think that's, as some people have pointed out, that's the live stream effect. They found out that we're going live with all this alpha, and Bitcoin is pumping as a result. One
caveat I'll throw onto that though, and it's something that of course we mention a lot in our videos, throw on those Bollinger Bands. I'm telling you, on the day, I think on the daily or on the week or on the 4 hour, maybe it is, you'll see that that Bitcoin has been bouncing within this range of like, just for the last few days, between like low 34K and like high 34K, and just like bouncing between this range. And it's like in this very narrow band, and like at any moment it's going to like explode up or explode down. And of course the pattern, it kind of looks like a bear flag, kind of looks like a triangle, or bull flag, sorry, or triangle, depending on what technical analysis you're doing. But it's like, if it pumps to the upside, then are we headed to 40K? Or if it goes down, are we going to go back to 31K like you were saying? And if we break below that, then we're going to 25K. And I don't know, I'm not a technical analyst, but I dabble. Call me when it's a real pump, damn it.
Fair enough. I want to completely change the direction of this conversation now, because Phil S has asked the question that I think really is on everyone's minds. So Phil says, random question: how can a yacht called Soak My Deck go so long without being spotted? Now, are you guys? But you're looking at me. You're
is this a joke? Is this a riddle?
Guy has a boat.
Really? No. So this is this moves us on to the kind of Sam Bankman-Fried part of the conversation. Are you aware? So Sam Trabucco, you guys have heard of Sam Trabucco, right? Former co-CEO of Alameda, disappeared completely. Yes. Nobody knows where he is.
He's a Fed.
He's a Fed. Okay. Well, interesting, because he bought a boat. You remember he bought a boat, and it turned out that Alameda had bought the boat, therefore perhaps FTX customers had bought the boat, and he called it Soak My Deck.
Okay.
That was the actual name he gave to it. But yeah, so have you guys got any particular Sam Trabucco theory? Well, Dan, Trabucco's a Fed.
Honestly, I haven't looked enough. If I'm being completely honest, I think the whole FTX Alameda operate, and maybe some people might think it's a little bit out there, but I personally think that the whole FTX Alameda operation was basically kind of like designed to fail to begin with. The whole point was like to kind of partner up with get really close and intimate with like Tether and Binance and all these like big players in crypto, all the big exchanges. I think at some point like Alameda was like one of the biggest market makers for like a lot of these offshore exchanges. So, and it was of course like one of the largest recipients of USDT, which is now making the headlines, even though we've been talking about this for like over a year. But basically, Sam Bankman-Fried of like the people in like Tether and Binance, he probably knew more about these. He knew the most about these companies besides the people who actually work there. And now he's under custody, and that means he's telling the authorities everything that he knows. And I think that, hot take is I think it's going to end with him, spilling enough information that he either gets off or ends up with a slap on the wrist. And then these other entities are kind of like more reined in and cracked down. And I don't think it's a coincidence that since he's been arrested, you've seen like all this lawsuits, even against like Coinbase and Binance and whatever. And you have to ask yourself where that information came from. I think it came from Sam. And I think that whole operation was designed to fail from the beginning. And I think that was the whole way that they were going to play it out. And maybe Sam Trabucco was somehow part of that. I don't know. But I like, as a fun fact, and I'm sorry for going on a tangent again, but Jessica actually mentioned this to me once. She's like, "Oh, like I didn't know, like you interviewed Sam." Like, so when I first got started in crypto, I actually did a panel discussion DeFi. It was with Stanny from Aave, Michael Egorov from Curve Finance, and Andre Cronje from Yearn Finance. And he actually didn't come on. I was so close. Like the live stream was going. I was messaging Andre. He was so close to coming on. But anyway, like all these guys are now, like billionaires, millionaires, whatever, famous. And Sam Bankman-Fried was also on that call. And from watching his interaction, he's not, everyone says, oh, he's stupid. He was just like a puppet, whatever. I think this guy was actually really smart. I think he actually is really smart. And I think he's calculating. And of course, I think even Tiffany Fong, we have a video coming out about that, that he does seem to, something we even picked up on too, is that he will say something that is technically true, but factually false, if that makes any sense, where it's like, I was not aware of this thing happening, which is like, he knew, but he was not like, let's say like conscious of it. You know what I mean? Like this kind of like play on words. But anyway, that's my ramble on that one. I think that FTX Alameda was like that whole operation was like planted there just to gather info about crypto industry. And now the chickens are coming home to roost. And it's part of why I'm so uncomfortable about like seeing these pumps and whatever. And with every passing week, there's another news, like now Cynthia Lummis wants investigation into Binance and Tether. It's like, where do you think that's coming from? Come on, guys. Come on.
Yeah, there's a part of me that doesn't wonder if the FTX saga was kind of set up to fail. I don't know. Not speaking to Sam Bankman-Fried personally, but just kind of the whole operation. And I do kind of wonder, was that kind of engineered as a catalyst to bring in like enforcement actions? Is the reason they needed like a big black swan event to really kind of crack down hard on crypto as an industry. So sometimes I do wonder how much of it was facilitated, because it almost seems hard to believe when you look at what was actually going on behind the scenes. I have a hard time believing that a group of people would make so many terrible errors in judgment to cause a collapse that's that widespread. So I'm like, was the whole thing set up to be doomed from the start? And with regards to Sam Trabucco and him going missing, I'm like, he probably cut a deal with somebody. I think that's probably the most logical explanation. He got a deal for his freedom, and now he's on a yacht with a funny name.
Yeah. What is it though with people in crypto just disappearing? Like this is becoming a meme, isn't it? You've got Sam Trabucco disappeared, Satoshi Nakamoto obviously disappeared. They're wildly different ends of the spectrum. You've also got like Jerry Cotton, the Quadriga CX guy.
Where's my money, Jerry? I lost money in Quadriga.
It still hurts, even all these years later. Ruja Ignato, to call OneCoin crypto is a bit of a stretch, but she disappeared as well. Yeah. There are a lot.
The guy from MakerDAO.
Oh yeah.
The co-founder who said that he was being hunted by some. He was going to be blackmailed by some intelligence authority, and then he was found dead on a beach. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look that up.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm just thinking back to that panel you were talking about as well. So SBF was going to appear. You also had Andre Cronje and Michael Egorov.
SBF did appear.
SBF did appear. Sorry, Michael Egorov and Stanny from Aave.
Yeah.
And there was another guy, Stacked. It was Stacked Finance, which was really closely affiliated with FTX, it seems like. And that's the interesting thing is that, so Sam Bankman-Fried was I didn't even know who he was at the time. I was still getting into crypto, and because basically what happened is I wanted to get on someone from SushiSwap, and I sent the message to SushiSwap Discord, and I'm like, I'm running an event, can someone appear? And then Sam SBF actually DMs me, and he's like, yeah, I'm interested, I'll speak for SushiSwap, and I was like, I have these DMs with him on Discord. And this is part of the reason why that I think that I thought that Sam was also kind of behind SushiSwap or whatever. There was this controversy because wasn't there some head chef guy who disappeared? No one knew who he was. Again, another disappearance. And I think it was probably, I don't know. That seems
Chef
like a credible.
Was that Chef?
Yeah. Seems like a credible theory to me. And the funny thing is total coincidence, and I'll say it, might as well. So before I joined the Coin Bureau, I was working for this Czech crypto startup, and of course we were speaking with all these different exchanges and companies and whatever. and one of these exchanges was called Bitfinion, or however you want to pronounce it, and the CEO of that exchange was Jared Gray, who I subsequently became, I guess, you know, I wouldn't say like full on friends, but like, you know, kept in touch. And then when SushiSwap was looking for a CEO, then I like, you know, through connections, I like put up Jared's name and he got the position. And now it's just this weird kind of like musical chairs where like, you know, Sam Bankman-Fried was first. Like I had no idea who he was. He was like the SushiSwap. I was randomly friends with this Jared Gray guy. Like a few years later, I like suggest him as a name for SushiSwap CEO. Jared becomes CEO. And then now SushiSwap, last I heard, was having like some like legal trouble or whatever, but I'm sure they'll get that sorted. Gary Gensler doesn't have anything to stand on in court apparently. So
Can only hope.
Speaking of things to happen in court, Cardano Green needs a bit of advice on a wager. I should point out, Cardano, if that really is your name, this is not financial advice. Over or under 25 years for SBF? What do you guys think? Dan?
Under.
Under.
Good
Taylor?
question. I'm also going to say under.
You think he's going to get less than 25
Yeah.
years, Jessica?
Or he'll end up serving less than 25 years. As in like,
Oh,
he'll
yeah.
get
So he'll get like 40
shortened
years,
over time,
shortened to 20 on good behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll get out before 25.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I think I agree with that. I think the sentence will be longer, but he'll get out on good behavior under
Yeah.
25.
Because everyone will look at the sentencing, so the sentencing will have to be substantial to a
Mhm.
certain extent. But I think over time, when they can kind of slip it under the rug, it will get shortened
Okay.
if possible.
What,
Okay.
the bigger question I want to know is like how many years do you guys think everyone else will get? Like Carolyn Ellison and Gary
Yeah.
Wong and Nishad Singh, like what are they gonna get? You know, like everyone's talking about like, oh, like Sam, like for life, but it's like, but what about Carolyn? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it sounds like she had like some. I mean, I'm not saying that she's to blame, allegedly, right?
Yeah.
But it sounds like she said some stuff on the stand that's like, oh, like you know,
Yeah.
allegedly, right? Let's leave it at that.
Well, it's interesting you asked that because we, as Jessica mentioned earlier, we've got a video coming out on the main channel sort of shortly after this live stream is done. And it's a kind of roundup of some of the stuff that's been going on in the SBF trial. And I actually spoke to Tiffany Fong for it. She spoke to me on Sunday from New York. And this is actually one of the things that I asked her, so I can give you guys a little preview of what's coming up in that video. So I said to her the same thing. I was like, you know, we were talking about what Sam might end up getting by way of a sentence. And I said, look, you know, Caroline Ellison, Nishad Singh, Gary Wong, you know, these guys have cooperated in order for leniency. And I said, you know, is there any indication of what they are going to end up with? And Tiffany said, well, obviously she's not a lawyer, but she has spoken to a number of lawyers sort of around the case. So the consensus is, or seems to be, that they will either get like single figures, so you know, less than 10 years, and I think low single figures was talked about, so maybe less
And a book
than
deal.
5 years, and a book deal.
BBC
Or they may
documentary.
even, I think there was speculation that they may even get off without a custodial sentence entirely, which I think would be, yeah, I think that would be crazy because like, okay, it appears from everything that we've seen and heard that SBF was very much the spider at the center of the web. These guys, you know, Caroline in particular, I think was kind of, you know, enthralled to him, obviously, because they had a personal
I
relationship.
feel bad for her, honestly.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, like, you know, they still participated in crimes. They were still, and if their testimonies are to be believed, they kind of realized that. And I guess, you know, it put them in a very difficult position, but they still, it sounds like they still had the opportunity to blow the whistle and go, guys, you know, this all is not right here. You know, this is a castle built on sand. So, but yeah, I mean, it does seem like they may get off. And like, yeah, I do have sort of a bit of sympathy with them in some way, but at the same time, you know, they did do wrong. You know?
Yeah, I think the other thing too to remember is because they're quite young, all these guys.
Really
Yeah.
young.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, I can't remember how old Sam is, but I know that like Nishad and these guys are like super young. So that's the other thing is you have to remember, like, you know, they, from what I remember from the stories of like, I'm not super familiar with like the other players, but like they graduated university and then they were like working maybe for like 1 or 2 years on like Wall Street and whatever. And like, not to like defend them or anything, but like for all they knew is like this type of stuff was maybe like normal. You know what I mean? Like as part of like a start, and it's also like it's not like you know turn into a Ponzi scheme overnight. It's like incremental steps. It's like, you know, first we're going to do this, and the next thing you realize it's like, wow, like I think we might actually be doing something illegal here.
Yeah.
Right. And that, so I think that it's kind of like that too. So I don't know. Not that I would know, of course.
Kind of swept along on the
Yeah.
tide of circumstance. Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, I think you guys are probably right. Like I think SBF could get out in under 25 years. You can't really imagine him being badly behaved in prison, can you? Like I
No.
can't. I'm not expecting to see stories of SBF shanking fellow inmates in the showers. Like unless we really have got him very, very wrong. But as Cardano Green, who asked that original question, also points out, this is something that I think probably on a lot of people's minds. Ross Ulbricht is in for life.
Yeah. But he was an example, and SBF is an asset.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, so many things to watch out for in that trial, and I think that's coming. I think sort of next week is when that's due to be wrapping up. I think closing arguments. Next week.
Yes, either next week or the one after. Yeah, you're correct.
Okay, so are you guys all right for like a couple more questions before we wrap up? Jessica, was there anything you had to ask the guys?
I am more curious to see what questions have come through.
Okay. Well, you asked for it.
You should do a rapid fire, guy. Like see if there's any in there that are like a 1 or 2 word, and then we can just both go like yes, no, yes.
Okay. I'll have a look. Muji, interested to know your views on move to earn projects this cycle. Very quickly, move to earn.
Love them. Yeah, it's not the ones that you have to pay to play though. Like if you have to buy a $500 NFT to get involved, forget about it.
Okay.
Interesting concept, but needs work. I think a lot of these have bad tokenomics. I haven't looked super closely, but any project where you have this thing where you can earn or like airdrop is either going to be gamed or it creates too much of an incentive for people to sell, if that makes any sense. And it's like, and the question is, like who would, okay, I can understand like, okay, wow, it's so much fun, but who's actually going to buy it? And I guess it ties into this thing that you create this barrier to entry and like the tokens and you have to buy it, you have to pay to play or whatever, like you're saying, and that's not really fair. It sounds like it has like the way the tokenomics are designed now, these games kind of like a short lifespan, but I do think they'll get it figured out.
I think Sweatcoin is one that I actually currently use. I've been using it for like a year and a half, and it was actually a Web 2 project long before it was a Web 3 project built out on your protocol. And that's a great one. And the reason why they're able to pay out is because it's just, well, what they say, if something's free, you are the product. And that's very much the case with Sweatcoin, because there's adverts, you can watch adverts, you get some more sweat coins. But yeah, I like them.
Interesting.
I think there was a question. I think someone was asking for views on Sweatcoin in the comments earlier, but I may have sort of zoomed past it. Matt asks, I think Matt might be one of our CBC subscribers actually. As someone aspiring to break into the Web3 industry but with limited experience, where is a good place to start? Or I should say, like, where did you guys start in Web3 journey?
So I'm going to assume that he means employment-wise, not like investing-wise. If you want to get into the industry, I think going to blockchain conferences is great, and LinkedIn is such a great asset as well. So on our website, we actually have an article on how to get a job in crypto, and we kind of go through a lot of different resources. There's some really good crypto job boards as well, and they're hiring specifically for Web3. And I think it's kind of important to know where your strengths and weaknesses are as well. Like there's a lot of people think that you need to be a techie to get into crypto, and you have to know coding. But I mean, we've got website designers who make pretty pictures. We've got graphic artists that work for the Coin Bureau, obviously writers. So not all the roles are technical, but yeah, definitely like just networking, LinkedIn.
Yeah, I was going to add to that. Yeah, we also have a video. Not only do we have an article, but we also have a video, although it's probably more outdated compared to the article, also about how to get a job in crypto. So I'll definitely check that out. Yeah, the main thing, like you were saying, like going to blockchain conferences, networking. In my case, the way that I got into it is basically just I knew a guy, like just one of my friends, just like through a friend, and he saw that he saw that I was doing, like I did some presentation about like crypto just for fun kind of, and he saw it on Instagram, and he was like, oh, like do you want to be the marketing manager of like my startup, like my crypto startup. So that was kind of like a fluke, but I think in general, like if you live in or near a city and just like see like where there's like blockchain meetups or whatever, like crypto, you know what? Don't go to blockchain meetups, go to crypto meetups. Screw the blockchain. Blockchain just means like JP Morgan shit. That's what crypto, not blockchain, damn it. Anyway, like so fine, I don't know. Like maybe I wouldn't like suggest steeping as far like going into underground to like a Monero meetup or anything like that. Like at least not to start, like maybe later on. But yeah, to go to a crypto meetup, like at least people like better like Bitcoin or Ethereum maxis than like the blockchain freaking people.
I think I would actually just I think I would like to just quickly say as well is don't be afraid to take like a step up job, if you will, like just something to get into the industry first before you go for your home run Hail Mary dream job. So for me, I came from traditional finance and all I knew is I wanted to get into crypto. So at first I was like, I don't care what the job is, I just want to get in the industry, learn as much as I can. So I had a couple jobs. They weren't my dream jobs, but I mean something that they're always hiring. Our exchanges need support staff and support members.
Yeah.
So, if like finance customer support, they've got hundreds of people just sitting there waiting to answer your questions, things like that. So it's not glamorous, but it gets your foot in the door. And then from there, you can kind of use it as a stepping stone to do what you really want.
I would add to that two things is either you want to be in a position that gives you some experience, like working for Binance, even if you're like sweeping the floor or something, will look good on a resume. But conversely, like also being in a position that gives you like good experience, but also like in terms of like networking. Like even before I got into crypto, I used to work at the post office in Canada. And in retrospect, it's like, I think being in a job where you actually interact with people, that you're not like locked in a room. This is how you kind of like network and make connections. You're kind of like as a consequence of your work, doing it on the job kind of. And I think that's a good, like try and replicate that in cryptos. It's like if you're working for some tiny NFT startup that you could not care less about, but if it has you going out to conferences and doing things and, you have a little bit of experience, then go for it.
And be brave to DM people. The amount of people that I DM'd at the very beginning in like kind of 2016 and 2017, that's how I got my first full-time crypto job for News BTC. I moved from Forex journalism. I literally just messaged the guys on Twitter and was like, I want to start working full-time in crypto. Can I come work for you? And they're like, okay, do you want to like set up a home video and do YouTube stuff? I was like, absolutely, let's go. And a lot of the times people don't know they need to hire people. You just have to kind of shill yourself,
Yeah. And you have to be comfortable also with the fact that crypto is not as structured as like traditional like work. Like, at the beginning, I was just like an independent contractor being paid in crypto. And for a lot of people, I think that's the biggest hurdle. It's like, I want to work in crypto, but I don't want to be like paid in crypto and and become a freelancer. I don't want to be a contractor. How does it work if a company is based out of Seychelles and I'm, based in the United States? And like, how are they going to pay me? Is my bank going to give me issues? These are like you have to just look past that. And that's the hardest part. I think that's forget the knowledge, forget all the stuff. It's like, it's being comfortable with the fact that I'm in a kind of like this weird gray zone where even the regulations are still even being hashed out. Like, do I need to be taxed when I'm paid in crypto? What happens if the value of the crypto changes when it's in transit? You know what I mean? Like all these things that like, you're like, oh my God, like, it's so stressful, but just bite the bullet, do it. It'll be fine. It'll all get figured out.
Yeah.
We do have some breaking news because Bitcoin is now 35.1.
Oh, that's a little bit more nice.
Yeah, so
live stream effect.
Hope they can hold that level.
Well done, guys. We got there. There's a massive question here. This is from Galatasaray. Would you guys take a bullet for Guy or for Vitalik?
Depends where.
We have to choose Guy or Vitalik.
I don't know. Is it both or one or the other? Is it a choice between me and Vitalik? Would you guys take a bullet for Vitalik?
If it was only going to wound me and be fatal for him, then yes.
Okay, that's a lot of information to process in a very short space of time.
I'm not sure. To be honest, I'm not sure I'd take a bullet for Vitalik,
Okay.
but I would take a bullet for you guys as long as it doesn't kill me.
Yeah,
As long as I can recover from it, yeah, why not?
And
I'd do it for any friend. Come
and
on.
I'd want the coin girl to cover my hospital bills and pay leave.
Yeah.
I feel it's probably the least that we could do. Galatasaray said one or the other.
Oh, well, I mean, I work with guys, so he's got Vitalik. It's got to be Guy.
Coin Bureau or Ethereum?
The future of DeFi.
Vitalik, if you're watching.
Yeah. Look, if I see someone coming towards me with a gun, I'll worry about it myself.
Great question, though.
It is a good question. I feel I know my colleagues a lot better now. Someone's saying, Chaiman from I think from Amsterdam, a chef in Amsterdam. Thanks for all the great content. Just started my crypto journey in January. Scandals are pretty ubiquitous in the normal financial world, as in crypto, right?
Yep.
Absolutely. So, I think crypto gets a lot of unfair shade for all the scandals and the corruption and the hacks. And it's like, if you just go back, or long before Bitcoin was even a gleam in Satoshi's eye, there's been scandals going on in all levels of Wall Street, politics, you name it. If it involves money, there's corruption. And I wouldn't say that crypto is any better or worse in the traditional financial space. It's just, for some reason, they like to put the spotlight on crypto a little bit more, I think. And I think Wall Street has just gotten so good at kind of, hiding things under the rug. So yeah, they can get away with a lot more. And they're the ones in politicians' pockets and paying off the media companies and things like that. So I think a lot of the corruption and scandals on Wall Street kind of go unnoticed, but it doesn't take much digging. And I mean, earlier this year, I actually came across some really interesting reports. Is you can look up the legal penalties and fines that get issued to all the major Wall Street banks, and some of them will receive like hundreds of fines in the span of a year. And these are big, like Morgan Stanley's, Wells Fargo, like all these banks, and it's just like their list of infractions is just pages long. Like, how are they still operating? It's like a crypto exchange can make one mistake and they get the axe from the SEC. Meanwhile, Morgan Stanley is hiding financial bodies under every nook and cranny. So it's mad.
The way that I would explain it is like crypto is kind of like still, I would say maybe for you have petty criminals in crypto and you have professional criminals in traditional finance.
Yeah.
And the criminals in traditional finance, they see the petty criminals as competition, so they don't like it, but that's the way that I explain it. And when crypto becomes mature and whatever, and those petty criminals move on to whatever else or become a smaller percentage of the pie, then we're going to be stuck with the professional criminals. There you go.
Sobering thought. Here's a true story from Craig, put on the Daily Dose of the Coin Bureau. It sends me to sleep. Thanks. And I watch again in the morning. Much love for CB team. Thanks, Craig. That's damning with faint praise, if ever I heard it, isn't it? Funnily enough, I don't know if I've mentioned this before. I don't know if I've told you guys this, but like one of the most common things that people say to me at crypto conferences is like a woman will come up to me and say, "Oh, my husband is a big fan of yours. He goes to sleep listening to your voice."
If crypto doesn't work out, you can read audiobooks.
Exactly. I can do Guy's sleep course. It's always good to have another string to your bow, folks. Now, Jess, I've got a question for you.
With it.
John's channel says, "Is Sol a buy at these prices or wait for some pullback?" This is not going to be financial advice, but
This is not financial advice. Like I said earlier, though, Breakpoint conference with Solana is going on until November the 3rd in Amsterdam. So that'll be an interesting one to keep an eye out for. It's not just specific to representatives from Solana and the ecosystem. There are also some other representatives that are, from exchanges. There's some good speaker lineup. So I would say keep an eye out for some of the speakers. If there's an option, I'm not sure there's an option to listen to the live conference in real time, but keep an eye out for some of the speakers on their social media if they're posting any updates of their talks. I personally, this is a pretty high price, but we are interestingly interviewing, it's not financial advice, so I don't want to say too much, but we are going to be interviewing Austin, who is the head of strategy for Solana, next Thursday. So if you do have any questions about Solana, let me know, drop some in the comments and we will work through those. I saw that Raoul Pal tweeted today about the new transaction speed per section from Solana. And I think he's been tweeting about Solana a lot lately.
He loves it.
Yeah, really, really optimistic. So we'll see.
I think, again, not financial advice, but I think when you're asking like, should I buy? Then you probably shouldn't buy. You know what I mean? Like that always happens when you're like, oh my God. And then the moment Jessica, like, actually, I didn't realize that the conference is going on now. That's probably why Solana is pumping. And what do you think is going to happen when the conference is over? Like all the announcements have been made, and like, unless there's another conference next week that I don't know about, then this is probably the sell the news event. Yeah, exactly. That'll be the pullback. And anyway, and to be honest, I always get nervous around these like kind of conferences, especially when they all converge on like a date. I'll give you a good example. Like I like listening to a podcast called Blockworks, and the last time they had like an event, I think in London last October, which is when everything just collapsed. And then their next event is in next March. And I'm like, oh Jesus, don't tell me something's coming in March. You know what I mean? Like, but this is how I see it, even like with the crypto approach. It's like, oh, here comes the conference, and like everything's rallying and leading up to the conference. Yes. And then invariably right after, especially in the absence of like a broader bull market, as soon as that, that hype factor is gone, then like people are like, well, I guess I'll go back to Pepe then.
We almost managed to go a whole live stream without mentioning.
Yeah.
We're so close.
It's on Guy's laptop. It's
59 minutes without mentioning Pepe, and there we go. We're almost coming up to the hour, so I just have a couple more questions for you guys. Phil on Tour asks, my question to the team, how do you make your taxes? Do you guys use software, etc.? Because obviously you guys are good taxpayers. Do you use particular software?
So I went as extreme as moving countries to avoid paying crypto tax. I'm a resident in Portugal, and when I first moved there, they did not tax crypto, and that wasn't the whole reason that I left Canada. But I do remember looking back at like my crypto transactions for the year, and I was like, I don't even think I could. I mean, there are some great, like I have used Coinly before. I was in the UK for a while, so I did pay some crypto tax there, and I used Coinly, which made it really easy because it can actually just integrate with all your wallets, all your exchanges. But then you get wild stuff going on, like random airdrops, and if you get like things like yield farming and stuff like that, it makes it really difficult. So I know Coinly is really quite reputable, and I think I can't remember the name of the other one. Accounting.
Yeah, it got taken over by Glassnode. I remember last time I mentioned Accounting, people were like, it doesn't exist anymore. It's been bought by Glassnode, but the software itself still works.
I was gonna say no. I don't use any software, and I guess I'm kind of lucky in the sense that I've only really like taken profit once so far, like during the cycle. It was like way back in 2021, and I just like instead of like going through like each individual transaction or whatever, I kind of like purposely overestimate. You know what I mean? Like how much I have to pay. You know what I mean? And I just do it that way, and I just assume that this whole amount. I just don't even factor in the amount that I put in. I just say like this whole amount was my capital gain, and I tax on that. And I know that like if you were to math it out, then I'm actually probably still owed money from like in terms of refund, like I'm like overpaying. But I'd rather do that than go through the headache and because like there's just so many transactions. So that's kind of like I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, it really depends on where you live. But in some countries, I think like the authorities aren't really as crazy. It's like as long as you're just paying it, like they'll leave you alone. Like people really. I honestly think the United States is one of the few countries where like the tax authorities will really come and like shoot you in your house if you like pay like the wrong amount or like forget to like put a certain zero somewhere. But I honestly think in most other countries, like as long as you like put a good faith effort and you actually like just say okay, like this is how much I put in and like this is how much I made in total, and and then you just like report that as like your capital gain. And like just try and keep it simple and like you'll be fine. And if they come and audit you and it probably would have happened anyway. And at least this way, once all the pain is over, like whatever audit they'll keep, like that's like one thing that I'm honestly worried about is that my like a third of my yearly income from like that year was like from my crypto gains, which is pretty nuts. And I was a little bit concerned like the tax authorities would come and check, but then I was like, well, I like over reported kind of like my gain. So if they come and like let them come and check, they'll find that they owe me money. You know what I mean? Like so that's the way that I play it. Maybe it's not the smartest, but I honestly think that if you're in the US, then yes, you should be using these accounting softwares. I think even in some other countries. But if you live almost like anywhere else in the world, like just be honest and just like like I made this gain, report the gain, and just move on. You know what I mean? Like, and so they're not good. Like, unless you're making like hundreds of millions or whatever, it's not worth going through every single transaction. Like, even for the accounting purpose, they don't even want to see that. They're not even going to read it. Come on, let's be real. They're not even going to read it in the government. You know what I mean? It's like for 50 grand, or like there's so many famous memes like, oh, like, the accountant looking through like hundreds of pages to see that I made a capital gain of 20 cents. Like, there's a reason it's a meme, Anyway.
Yeah. And Jessica, I mean, you've lived in Dubai for quite a long time now, so. I have lived in Dubai for quite some time. Interestingly enough, though, my dad has an accountancy firm in the UK. So last January, I was in the UK, and he was like, oh, I'm having to do all this kind of cryptocurrency accounting for some of my clients that have made money. I've never heard these words before. And I was like, Dad, I have been a content creator in crypto for 6 years. What do you mean you have never heard some of these words before? Are you telling me you've never listened to a single video? So Ian, I know you're not watching, so it's absolutely fine for me to say that. Wow. Well, and of course, if you've made a loss, then the whole thing is academic, isn't it? So okay. On that note, let's wrap it up for today. Dan, Taylor, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Yeah, it's been great to get your input. I feel we could probably talk for hours on end.
Oh, easily.
More, but I think an hour's live stream is enough for everyone. So Jessica and I will be back next week. We've got lots more content coming up. Keep a lookout for that interview with Tiffany Fong that we've got coming up on the main channel later on today. Thank you all for watching. There was one question aimed at me that I really feel I should answer. Hey Guy, it's a lovely autumn day in Taunton, Somerset. Are you looking forward to coming home for Christmas? The answer to that is yes, very much so. Taunton, Somerset, that's where Mrs. Guy is from. So I will be in Somerset at some point. Anyhow, that's, I'm sure, really what everyone wanted to know. So thank you guys. Thank you all for watching. We'll be back again soon. NFA Live tomorrow as well. So much. See you guys soon. Thanks for joining. Okay, and let's